All right, YouTube, this is Mahadeva. You have to forgive me, I'm a little sleepy. I'm doing a lot of surfing. So, I'm going to take the day off and rest. So, I want to talk about transformation. You cannot have evolution without transformation. And you cannot have transformation without destruction. You cannot evolve on any level. Doesn't matter physically, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, financially. You cannot evolve without death. You must be willing, in fact, you must be prepared to face death. And by death, I could mean the death of anything. But in order to go beyond whatever limitations you have, in whatever area you have, in order for things to change, you must be willing to seek out your own transformation, your own death. You know, we are going through a huge transformation. I used to say it. I was saying it for years. I've been saying it for the past, 15 years, that some big change is coming. And I remember, if you have ever seen the Celestial Qigong videos, which I made 12 years ago, in those videos I say something to the effect of that there is a big energetic shift coming for the whole human race. And those people who are not willing to change and grow, if you don't do, the Celestial Qigong, what I was saying is this will change you fundamentally on the cellular level. And if you aren't willing to shift on that, then what's going to happen is you will have a very difficult time. And so that shift is no longer coming. That shift is here now. The COVID crisis is one symptom of that. The political difficulties in the United States, where the United States had an election and it can't figure out who won the election, and all of the violence and all of the continued, there's both sides are saying the other side are lying. Both sides are saying the other side is crazy. This is showing that there's a huge shift going on, and there are, pick whichever side you want. There's a whole group of people in this world that are not handling the shift well, and it will destroy those who aren't willing to transform. The shift will destroy them, and in some cases it is. People are dying like flies. I just saw the other day something that was really traumatic for me to see. It really messed with me. I had a hard time sleeping. I woke up the next day. I was horrifically depressed. And that is the fires that are happening in Siberia. I don't know if you've seen what's going on right there, but there are fires that, that have never happened in the history of Siberia in the modern age, since before the ice ages. We are having, they are having fires that is completely taking out a whole ecosystem. The smoke has made its way for the first time in history to the North Pole. So fires, wildfires, the smoke from wildfires has made its way to the North Pole. It's all going all the way across over to Alaska, the smoke. And there's so much carbon. You may think, oh, it's just a fire. There is so much carbon trapped in the tundra, in the just the plant material just underneath the surface there. Of course, all of the trees, thousands of miles, thousands of square miles of forest up, gone. And besides the fact that that's a big deal, that's just a tragedy right now in that part of the world. Besides that, all of that carbon that has been stored for hundreds of thousands of years. In fact, there was more carbon released so far in those fires than the entire carbon output of the United Kingdom. That's a big deal. That's going into the atmosphere. It's not going away. And so when I saw that, that's a watershed event. It means that we've passed a point of no return. So, what in the discussion of global warming, there's been this narrative that if we just cut back on fossil fuels, or even if we cut out fossil fuels altogether, that magically, immediately, the climate will go back to normal. And that's not how it works. The amount of carbon that's been released in the atmosphere since in the Industrial Revolution is building up. So the heat that we're experiencing now, or the climate shift, because by the way, global warming doesn't mean everything heats up. It means that there's big hot spots and then there's cold snaps that are colder than normal. So it's a climate shift, but the overall mean temperature, the average temperature of the globe is going up. But you have super hot spots and super cold snaps and shifts in airflow and water. The ocean was sucking up a lot of the heat. A lot of scientists were wondering a while back, we should be a lot warmer than we are. What's going on? Well, it's because the ocean was sucking up a lot of the heat. And now that it's gotten to a saturation point, it's now releasing it. So we're having the floods, we're having the storms, we're having the fires. But the idea that if we could just put out this fire, no. What's happened now is that we have shifted. So the climate is not shifting, it's shifted. And what you're going to see is whole ecosystems completely transforming. This isn't going to be the beginning, the end. This is just the beginning. And all of the carbon that's been released is now building up. And so the heat that we are experiencing, that they're experiencing right now in Siberia, is not a result of this year or last year. It's a result of 100 years ago. So the stuff that we release now, that we're releasing today, as I'm watching all the cars drive by and the planes fly overhead, all of that carbon is going to kick in decades from now. So even if we stopped all carbon emissions now, what would happen is the climate would continue to heat up for perhaps hundreds of years. So we are in a transformation, no two ways about it. What's going to happen from it, we don't know. Maybe the human race will go bye-bye. The world will figure something out. It's got time. It can take another few million years and the earth will figure itself out. We are the ones that are going to, be taken off of the equation at some point. So we've got to evolve. Evolution is here. So if you want to, you can use this as an opportunity to evolve. All of these paths here are about transformation. There's nobody who's done any of these practices who has not experienced some kind of a transformational effect. Now, if you're like me, you do it for selfish reasons. I do this stuff because I get off on the energy that flows through me. I enjoy the power. I enjoy the health. I enjoy the spiritual connection. I enjoy the connection to the ancestral masters. But the price that I pay for all of those goodies is I have to go through a transformational experience in myself. When you do the Warrior 90-Day Challenge or any of this, even if you do the free stuff here. If you do this, what will happen is you will have to experience all of your negative emotions. You will have to experience all of the false narratives that are keeping you limited. And that's all that's happening here. You know, I was thinking about this the other day when I was getting really upset about it. And I realized, you know, human beings are a natural part of this earth. So even everything, all the technology that we've created is just, that is this organism called human beings. That's just the effect that we are having on our environment. We may create our own destruction, but we are aiding some evolution in the earth. And as long as I take myself out of the equation and I don't get wrapped up in my own fear of annihilation, then I see that in the long run, that's all that's happening here. And, you know, the Earth has gone through numerous extinction events and transformations, and who knows, some other species in another 5 million years will evolve, and that will be another level above humans. Maybe we have to destroy ourselves before we can evolve. I don't know. So that's just something to think about. You know, instead of getting wrapped up in the nonsense, you know, COVID, lockdown, all the, you know, listen, the Delta variant is a big deal. People are dying like flies again in the United States, even after, you know, now we're supposed to be on the mend because we have the vaccine. Of course, people have to take the vaccine for it to do anything. And I'm not saying again, I haven't made a decision on a vaccine yet, so don't put me in a camp yet. But the point is that you know, we've got to change our narrative about ourselves, and that's really what's happening here. We either choose to change the narrative, or the narrative will be forcibly changed upon us. I don't know if that's an accurate phrase I just said. All right, but I'm here to just take your questions today. I'm just spouting off of what I've been thinking about recently. And I'm happy to discuss any question you have. I said I'll answer any question, no matter how stupid, unless you're just being sarcastic and abusive, in which case I will block you. I don't guarantee that I won't psychoanalyze you or pull your covers or misunderstand you or respond in a way that you find challenging. I don't make any guarantees, but I'll do my best. I will answer any of your questions, no matter how stupid. So go ahead and just start writing them out if you have them. Let's see. Truth Untold. Yeah, they're worse than the Cali fires. California is this big. Siberia is huge. Huge. So it's not just worse than the California fires. It's like the difference between, you know, a hand grenade and a nuclear bomb. The level of, I mean, it's huge. It doesn't affect everybody because there's not a whole lot of people that live in Siberia. But it's like if you were to take, you know, imagine, you know, probably half of the continental United States. Imagine half of the continental United States completely in flames. That's what we're talking about. It's that big of a deal. Gert Van Zyl, how long have you been on my channel? You've been on my channel a long time. I have told you very specific instructions. You write the word question, but you do it in all caps so I can see it. Today there's not a lot of people. Gert Van Zyl, I'm not going to let you get away with not following my suggestions. Because you're one of those people. You're one of those people that I see in you. I haven't even read your question yet. But I see in you an unwillingness to follow your own best interests. You know, you don't strike me as somebody who does the work, who pays attention. And so this is an acting out. The unwillingness to hear my requests, follow my instructions. It doesn't matter that you follow my, you know, my, what do you call it? You know, my anal retentive control freak issues. It's not about that. Do you want to transform? Do you want to heal? Do you want to evolve? the universe will give you specific instructions on how to do that. And if you aren't willing to listen and follow those specific instructions, you, like everybody else, will be one of those people that says, nothing's happening my way. So Gert Van Zyl, write the word question in all caps. I've asked you for months and months and months to do that. And you always find some way to not follow my instructions. And it's very annoying. It makes me not want to answer your question. Now I'll read it. Is it normal when you start living in the now that you really have to put effort into remember what happened 3 to 4 hours back? No, that is not normal. Inderjeet Maman, question. What element, and same thing for you, Inderjeet, write the word question in all caps, please. Because otherwise I miss your questions. And don't you want me to answer them? Isn't that the whole point? I'm telling you, I'm giving you something that will help you interact with me better. Isn't that the whole point? What element are the Indians from India? What? Oh. So Inderjeet Maman is asking about the Hopi myth. So let me explain that. So if you haven't heard this myth, and I'm not representative of the Hopi, anything Native American, I only know what I've read and seen in videos. But what I've heard I like. So it goes like this. According to by the way, the Hopis are considered, as I understand it, to be the elders. The Hopi reservation in the United States, the Hopis still live in their ancestral homeland. They haven't had to pick up and move. They weren't, gathered up or slaughtered or put into some other place. They live in their ancestral homeland. That hasn't changed. And they'll tell you the reason why is because they continue to do their rituals, which they don't share with the public. So, none of us can say, I know what the Hopi rituals are, because they don't share them with people. And it's their rituals in their mind are there to keep the world in balance. So in other words, what they say has a lot of weight among other Native Americans as well. They look to them as the elders. So the Hopis say that in the beginning, the first humans, there were 4 clans. And there was, based on 4 of the elements. Now, we use 5 elements, but let's just take ether out of it for now. So we've got the 4 elements. We've got earth, air, fire, and water. And according to them, in the beginning, the Great Spirit, God, Odin, I don't care what, deity you choose, came to the first humans, the 4 clans, and said, I'm going to send you into 4 different directions so that you can master the elements. So it's saying the same thing that science is saying, is that there's no such thing as race, really. I'm a Caucasian, obviously from European descent, but that's simply because of the evolution that my ancestors went through from 40,000 years of ice ages, based on their environment. So my ancestors 50,000 years ago and more were dark-skinned Africans. Sorry, that's just a fact. That's true with everybody. But I am a member of the Fire clan because that's who went north. So 4 clans, they go into different directions to learn and master the elements. So those that went south are the Native Americans. I'll explain that in a second. And they were sent to master Earth. Those that went west were meant to master water, and those are the Africans. I'll explain that in a second. Those that went east went to master air, and those became the Asians. And those that went north were meant to master fire, and those were, quote, Europeans. So the question Inderjeet is asking, what element are the Indians? Well, the Indians are Indo-Europeans. Well, let's be clear. Modern day Indians are a genetic mixture. So there is no pure Indian race. The Indians that you see, people in India, the reason why they have dark skin, but they have sometimes facial features that look like mine, but they have darker skin. That's because you had Indo-Europeans who weren't white, by the way. They weren't Northwestern European white anyway. They were mostly kind of olive skin, dark hair, dark eyes. They had some variations in that, but that was their basic look. Those people spread all over the Northern Hemisphere, and one of the places that they went to colonize is India. And so over thousands of years, they interbred with the natives there who were very dark skinned. And so that's why you have today the modern Indian. If you check their DNA, even though they are Indo-Europeans, they're going to have a completely different ethnicity than other Indo-Europeans, like Western Europeans. Western Europeans, by the way, are a mongrel race. For those of you who think that white people are some purity, guess what? I'm a mongrel. If you're of Western European descent, you are a mongrel race. The Indo-Europeans came in and they interbred with a bunch of people, and there were some people that had blonde hair and blue eyes, some people that had very light skin and red hair and blue eyes. They interbred with them. And that's modern Europeans. Modern Europeans have 50% what's called Yamnaya DNA, which are the progenitors of the Indo-European race, religion, and culture and language. And then there was a bunch of hunter-gatherers there. A lot of them were very white, light-skinned, and they interbred. That's why, even though I'm of Germanic descent, when I had hair, my hair was jet black, and I have green eyes. I don't have blonde hair and blue eyes because of my background. So just to be clear, the racists out there, Northwestern Europeans are mongrels. There's no such thing as a pure Aryan anymore on this planet. And the pure Aryans were not white. They had lighter skin, but it was more olive skin and dark eyes. And they had big hook noses too. So, what element are the Indians, modern day Indians? Because they are descended from these Indo-Europeans, those would be representative of the northern clan. So fire. That's why, where do you learn about Kundalini? There's only one place in the world you learn about Kundalini. That's from the Indians, the East Indians. And Kundalini is fire. So Inderjeet, you should have known that. Kundalini is fire. All right. Jay Vance, welcome to the channel. If you have a question, please write the word question in all caps so that I can see it. Normally I only want honest questions and honest feelings, but today I will deign to answer whatever you throw at me. So Jay Vance asked a question. He says, do you think there is value in spending time with friends? I said I'd answer any question no matter how stupid. I mean, does it hurt or aid us during our attempt to transform? So Jay Vance, what you're not doing is you're not being specific. That question is so general. Of course, generally speaking, there's value in spending time with friends. Friends are people who love you, who are supportive of you. So your question doesn't make any sense. Does it hurt or help us to transform? Are you saying that you have friends that aren't supportive? Are you saying that when you hang out with friends, instead of doing things that are healthy for you, you slam heroin in your neck and spend all your time spending your money on hookers and porn and video games? I mean, come on, use your common sense. Obviously, there's value in spending time with people who love you and support you in your highest. It sounds like maybe you need different friends. It's a strange question. Why would you ask that? That's there's a different question of, Is it, what's the benefit in going and being and isolating yourself, choosing to take yourself out of society, to go and meditate? That's a whole different thing. But you're asking me basically, are your friends helpful? And I don't know. Do you have destructive, lower vibrational friends that keep you from following your highest awareness? Maybe you need to get some different friends. So instead of asking that general question, you should be asking a more specific question. Like, I hang out with my friends who watch a lot of porn and, sniff glue. Are they good for me? That's more like what you're asking me. Or are you saying that that you have some psychological dysfunction, that you don't do well around people? There's something specific about you that you're not asking, so I can't help you. Generally speaking, there's nothing wrong with hanging out with your friends. Question, Jameson-san. Transformative death of false narratives within context of desires for annihilation, literally and metaphorically as in Buddhism. Could desire for end of suffering be harnessed for Viking death? Generally speaking, what I'm hearing is a desire to escape. And that's a defense mechanism. It's what it sounds like to me. So what you're describing sounds like a defense mechanism. Because look, if you've grown up in a dysfunctional home, then in order to survive, what first happens is infants get furious. They get furious at the abuse or the neglect or the abandonment or the confusion or whatever it is that they experience. And then in order to survive, they turn that hatred, that anger inward, and this is where you end up with psychological problems. All psychological problems nowadays can be boiled down to shame, self-directed negativity. It doesn't matter if you're a narcissist, you're borderline, you're an alcoholic, you're a drug addict, you have anxiety, whatever you're a psychopath. It doesn't matter what your psychological issue is. It all boils down to shame, self-directed hatred. So your desire for annihilation isn't the same, if I'm hearing you correctly, as wanting to transform and become one with everything. Because transformation means becoming one with everything, not annihilating your identity. It means an expansion of your identity. So it's very confusing because, you hear a lot of, like Odin sacrificed himself to himself. He died to himself. But that's not the same as self-annihilation. It's not the same as, I remember one person was asking me something and said, I want to annihilate my ego. And that is just another form of suicide. Those are suicidal thoughts. It means you can't stand yourself and your own feelings to such a degree that you want to destroy yourself. You think by annihilating yourself, you'll be okay. It's about wanting to feel better, and it's a defense mechanism. It's not an actual yearning to go beyond your limitations and be one with everything. So that's what I'm hearing in your question, Jameson. Indrajit Maman question, are you familiar with the term Aryan? Of course I am. Who hasn't heard of that term? Could you maybe explain why white people and Indians use this term? So Aryan was just simply the name of the first Indo-Europeans. So if you want to know how radically transformative the Indo-Europeans were on not just the face of the planet, but on their corner of the world, which was, the northwestern hemisphere. We're talking, 10,000 years ago, right after the Ice Age, a couple thousand years after that, there was a group of people who lived on the steppes of, the Russian, Western Asian steppes there. And these are just grasslands that go on forever. And these are people who were hunter-gatherers. They obviously had a language of their own, but they were just a small, before I get into that, if you want to see how influential this was, if you study the Caucasus Mountains, There's a reason why white people are called Caucasians, because it has been theorized that, you know, white people came from the Caucasus Mountains. So if you look at the Caucasus Mountains, you will find, I don't even know how many languages there are, but there are tons of languages that have no connection to any other language in the world. And some that just sound really strange and weird. You know, and what you're seeing is you're seeing a time capsule of what was going on in the world 10,000 years ago. You had a bunch of small, you know, groups of clans and tribes that had their own language and their own culture that were totally, completely disconnected and weren't related to any other languages. They're probably languages that you know have been evolving for tens of thousands of years in isolation, even if it's just one mountain range over. Okay? So one group of these people were people who spoke a language that we now call Proto-Indo-European. And they lived on the steppes of what is now, I forget what it's called, you know, near Russia there. So these people were hunter-gatherers, and what they did is they used to hunt wild horses, because the wild horses lived on these plains. So instead of herding, or, you know, chasing buffalo or chasing deer, they would hunt the horses. And so after hunting and feeding on horses, then they decided instead of chasing after them, it's better if we corral them. So they started, you know, having these big herds of horses that they kept corralled up that they would use for meat. And then they started using the horses' milk. So they started getting milk from the horses and meat. And then, in order to, if they had these big herds of horses, they started to learn how to ride the horses, because you could herd more horses by riding a horse than you could walking around. So they learned how to ride the horse. That changed everything. Once they learned how to ride the horse, they figured out, oh my gosh, we can go so much farther. And then they created wagons, and they would put like their homes, you know, their yurts on top of these wagons, and they would move, and they were now these mobile, you know, they started really being very successful. And then of course, warfare. So in warfare, if you have chariots and horses, you are going to completely, you know, slaughter your hunter-gatherer enemies. So these people that were probably just a small group of people, like if you go in the Caucasus now, you'll see a few thousand people speak this language, totally unrelated, and other unrelated people speaking this language over here. This was one of those groups that found a technology that completely transformed their ability to do everything. And even though I was saying different things a while back, I've come to realize based on the scientific evidence that it's actually true. About 7,000 years ago, these people took their horse warrior pastoral culture and they spread it all over. And they spread their language and their religion and their ethnicity. So the term Aryan is just one word for one of these descendants of these people that were conquering, they were colonizing different parts of the world. And the Aryans were the name that these particular Indo-Europeans, these horse warriors, called themselves as they went down into northern India to conquer and colonize that area. And it just means noble. So they were just calling themselves the noble ones. It had nothing to do with race. You know, when you read the Vedas, there's a clear racial distinction. They talk about the indigenous people there, and they talk about them being dark-skinned. And so, you know, in the beginning, when these guys were coming down, there was a racial divide. Now there isn't, because it's been, you know, 7,000 years or so. I don't know when they went in, you know, thousands and thousands of years of interbreeding. And so now East Indians don't have that racial distinction like they did thousands of years ago. But the same is true for Western Europe. Western Europe was populated by indigenous, very light-skinned people. Blonde hair, blue eyes, red hair, blue eyes, very light skin. And those Indo-Europeans came in and they interbred with those guys. And so modern day Western Europeans, no matter where you are, especially Northwestern Europe, you're going to have half Yamnaya, which is Indo-European, and half whatever was there before. So I'm familiar with the term, but what's ironic is that the Nazis picked that up and they started calling themselves Aryans, and they're not. First off, the Aryans were a specific tribe from the Indo-European homeland. They weren't all of the Indo-European homelands. They were one specific tribe that came down into India. They called themselves the Aryans. There were other from that same offshoot that went off, like the Tokharians went off farther east, and they colonized what is now Western China. And they had big cities there. They were very successful, a very successful civilization. But they called themselves something else. They called themselves the Shaka, which meant the pure or something like that. So they had these terms, each tribe had these terms for themselves. Aryan is just one. It doesn't mean anything. Just, you might as well call it, it's like calling yourself French or English or Spanish. It's just a name for that particular tribe. And of course, like everybody wants to call themselves a nice name, they called themselves the noble ones, the Aryans. That's it. So the Nazis, just used it and used it incorrectly. It's ironic. I mean, Germanic people are mongrels. They're not pure anything. I have green eyes. So do you know where green eyes came from? Green eyes came from extremely dark-skinned people who lived in Europe. They had very dark skin and they had green eyes. So that means one of my ancestors was one of these very dark-skinned Europeans that lived in Europe, tens of thousands of years ago. These are interbreeding, these really dark-skinned Europeans with the really light-skinned people who developed that in the northern parts of Western Europe, and they interbreeded. I mean, Europeans are a mongrel race. It's ridiculous, this whole European, it's just ridiculous. You can have somebody from Ireland and somebody from Scandinavia, and you can look at their DNA, and they will be more different from each other than they are to Africans. In other words, you could take the guy from Scandinavia, the guy from Ireland, and then have some guy from Africa. The guy from Africa will have more in common with both of them than they do with each other. The two white people will have less in common with each other than the black guy does with the two white guys. So this whole idea of race is just nonsense. It's just ridiculous. All right, what else? Jameson Son, honest feeling. I feel less shame and fear about my feelings of the call of the void, but that call is sometimes stronger, and I would like to embrace the feeling in a way that can feel transformative death. So Jameson, as you know, I was celibate for 6.5 years doing the Maoshan spirit fighting. I should put that link up. Where is that? So I'm not against any of this stuff. And there's nothing wrong with taking these things which may have some basis in some kind of this stuff right here. I did that for 6.5 years. I was celibate when I did that. And so I've got nothing against that. And, it was very powerful. But the thing is, if you're taking that desire and you're using a good technology, you can take what can be, the motive can be technically dysfunctional, but if you're pointing it in a good direction, it can be very healing for you. So I'm not telling you not to do that, not to follow that. I'm just letting you know, we need to be people who have power of choice over what we do. Right? We want to know and choose what we're doing and when we're doing it and how we're doing it. So if you have this desire that's driving you, sure, follow through with it. If the way that you're following through with it, like if you want to follow some meditative isolationist pathway to self-knowledge and you're doing some energy work and meditation and rituals, then you're taking positive action towards, resolving some pain and some dysfunction within you. But it doesn't mean that it's completely pure. This is what we run into the problems with spirituality. Everything is love and light and I'm destroying my ego. Well, you might be doing that for really actually egotistical, narcissistic reasons. Self-directed negativity is narcissism. You may be doing it for that, but like me, I love going to the gym and working out and lifting, and a lot of that has to do with my insecurities and wanting to feel strong and look a certain way and all of that. But it's also happens to be extremely good for my health. In fact, as you get older, I'm going to be 58 here, working out in the gym really hard is actually a really good way to stave off old age. In fact, one of my greatest heroes now is a guy named Jacinto Bonilla, who's 81 years old, and he is like this CrossFit guru. And he looks like he looks my age. If we were to stand next to each other, you wouldn't be able to tell he was any older than me. And that's because he's just been working out, obsessively his whole life. And he's this legend in the CrossFit thing. So, it's good that I go to the gym and I surf and I do all that, but doesn't mean that there aren't, dysfunctional things behind it. So, this is true humility, being aware of all, and I accept that. That's part of me. And what's a good way to act on that? Go to the gym. So a good way to act on your desire for self-annihilation, which in my opinion, there's no way you're going to tell me that has no connection to your upbringing, because I know about your upbringing. But this is a positive and healthy way to experience that and to work through it. I was celibate for 6.5 years. I'm not now. I have no need to do that. I don't, and now I don't put any value on it, positive or negative. It's just something that I did. All right? All right, let's see what else. Joel Dowding, question. Your art is more meaningful than the infinite crap out there in cyberspace racking up millions as NFTs. Would you consider selling for big profit? Would I do something that made me millions of dollars? Sure. If I could make millions of dollars off of the 90-day challenge, I would. So I don't have anything against making a shit ton of money. I still have to look at myself, but that just means, for me, instead of having, a few hundred people watching me on a regular basis and having, tens of people subscribed, I have 10,000 people subscribed. My message isn't going to change. Would I sell out in a way that I didn't feel comfortable? No, I wouldn't sell out. I wouldn't do what, there are people out there who spread false news, by the way. There are people who get paid millions of dollars. This is a fucking truth. People who get paid millions of dollars to spread lies over social media. These people sell themselves out to the highest bidder. Politicians do this all the time. There are politicians now who are feeding lies to you on a daily basis. What's the Marjorie Taylor Greene? There's a reason why she won't tell anybody that she's been vaccinated. However, she'll spend lots of time talking against vaccinations. But she won't tell you whether or not she's been vaccinated. You know what I mean? There are people that will sell themselves out and say whatever it is that will bring them money and attention and fame. So I can't do that. But sure, I'll make millions of dollars off of what I'm already doing. And if I have to tweak the message to get more people to do it, to pay me money and to benefit themselves, yeah, I would do that in a second. So I don't really know what you're asking me. Would you consider selling for big profit? Can I print to a cup? I don't know what that means. You need to explain that. Dakota Spruill, question. Are the 4 different elements that are in those 4 different regions Are they reflected in the religious rites and beliefs in magic in their form of shamanism? Not always in an overt way. I'll give you my interpretation of it. So, the East Indians, as I've already said, they're the discoverers, the sole discoverers of a spiritual energy called Kundalini, which is fire. It's way back when, whomever, some Irish poet talked about a fire in the head. So a lot of modern day neo-druids, although I think they're completely misunderstanding it, will use that as some, So fire is going to be represented. If you look at East Asian language, like the Chinese language, it's very practical. It's like computer code. So, language has an effect on the way people think. And Asian people tend to be very practical. And it sounds really racist when I say that. But having trained with Asian spiritual masters, I can tell you, they don't flip out, they don't get angry, they don't do what I do. They don't go all over they tell you, do this, do that, and if you don't follow the rules, or if you do something that they feel is disrespectful, they just turn around and walk away. They just, without saying anything, just close the door in your face. That's representative of their element, which would be the wind. Right? This isn't about my emotion, your emotion. This is about my practical ability to teach you. And if you can't follow directions and if you can't be respectful, then I can't teach you. Slam the door shut in your face. Whereas, when I was first getting to know the Norse deities and getting to know Odin and Thor, and I would have these visions of these long houses filled with fire. There was fire everywhere, and the warmth of the heart, and the warmth and the intensity of that. And I was feeling really connected to that. And I was talking to somebody about Thor, and I said something sarcastically, but it was really coming from my insecurity, and I ended up projecting that onto Thor. And I felt this immediate backlash. I felt Thor say to me, "How dare you talk about one of your family members like that? Don't ever talk bad about your family." Now, I felt guilty for a while until I thought about it, and I was saying, oh, he's calling me family. That's the warmth of the family. So this is why Shakespeare is known all over the world, but he brings the fire of his poetic, Norse religion. Compare Norse religion mythology to East Asian religion mythology. Huge difference. Talking about the same thing, but what is, the Lord of the Rings? It's very poetic. It's, it makes for really good movies, and it's fun, and it's the fire of their expression in their mythology. So yes, but, for instance, the element for the Africans is water. So anytime you turn on a radio, I don't care what music you're listening to, unless it's, like country western, but even then, that has a lot of influences as well. Anytime you turn on the radio, you are hearing African music. The music of Africa has seeped into everything. So just the basic beats are African. And so that's water. Water seeps into everything. So even though it might not technically, superficially be, Africans only worship water and Europeans only worship fire, it may not be that. I mean, we use all of the elements and we worship, but there's going to be some expression of the elements in culture, art, and religion of each of these places, and you'll see it if you look hard enough. So I hope that answers your question. Chong the Viking throws down $5. Thank you. Inderjeet Maman question: why is Thor not stronger than Odin when he seems to be more moral? I don't know where you're coming up with this. Why is Thor not stronger than Odin? Where does this comparison even? Where did you hear that? Where are you going and seeing? Yes, an Odin and Thor, but of the two of them, Odin is stronger than Thor. I mean, they're two completely different expressions. So your question doesn't mean anything. I don't even know where it comes from. I don't know where you came to that conclusion. That's like saying, why is land weaker than water? I mean, they're two different things. They're representing two different kinds of spiritual energies, and who's competing? That's not actually true in the Vedic tradition. Indra wasn't the first lightning holder. The first person who held the lightning was Deus Pita, which is the Sky Father, which you see represented in the Greek tradition and the Roman tradition, which is Jupiter and Zeus are the lightning bearers and the Sky Father at the same time. So it represents a different evolution in their mythology. Whereas in Norse and in Vedic, you see a later tradition where the son has actually overpowered the father. So Indra actually got the lightning bolt from Deus Pita, the Sky Father, by defeating him. So you're wrong. Thor is not stronger than Odin. Odin is not the Sky Father. The Sky Father is Tyr. So Tiwaz, Deus Pita, Zeus. These are all the Sky Father. The Indo-European Sky Father was named Di. Means sky, his name means sky. And so the sky is where the lightning is held. So I don't know where you're getting this. It's just wrong. Do more research. Jameson-san, thank you. He thanks me. So I'm glad that was helpful. Arlene Vega, question, is the 90-day challenge Qigong? The 90-day challenge, so if you go to ThunderWizard.com, you click around, you see Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. So the name tells you what's in it. But what it is, if you want to understand what happens, is that when you get on there, by the way, if you subscribe, you're going to have access to all of the, I don't know how many hundreds of videos teaching all the different things. So it's in chronological order. So let's say you wanted to start at the very beginning and you wanted to learn the mastery of shamanism. You would go to the bottom where it says click for more, and you would keep clicking until you went all the way to the bottom, and the first video will be the introduction to the mastery of shamanism. And then as time went on, I started teaching different things, and so there's all these other things in there. So when you get to the Warrior 90-Day Challenge, you want to get to the first one of that. You click on the page where the videos are, you scroll down, if you have to, you click show more or whatever it is, until you get to level 1. And in that video, there'll be me talking, and then there's going to be videos where you're going to just do this one exercise for 90 days. And level 1, you click on the level 1 video, and you will see me doing various meditations, yoga movements, and Qigong routines. So I create a routine that lasts, I don't know what it is, 40 minutes or I don't know what it is, a routine. And in that routine, what I've done to answer your question is I have combined all three of the energies. I've combined Qi, which is Qigong, life force energy. I've combined in there Kundalini Yoga, which is this will raise the Kundalini. And I've combined, what are the three? The heart mind, the lightning power that surrounds the heart. So if you, without thinking about it, if you just do level 1, you're going to be stimulating all three of these. And I give you a morning, a noontime, and an afternoon, and you can choose to do one or all three of them. So to answer your question, just go do it. Is it something that beginners can do? Yes. Beginners and advanced, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your skill level is. You can follow it. So just do it and figure it out. It's also a monthly subscription, which means if you don't like it, just unsubscribe. Just don't resubscribe the next month. What have you got to lose? Instead of asking me all these questions, go do it. But to answer your question, yes, anybody can do it. Agent of the Universe question. I've been feeling intense feelings and it feels really severe. I want to sit with the... feelings, but I'm tempted to run away from them. What would you do in this instance? You've heard me say it a billion times. People ask me, how do I overcome this feeling? And I say, when did I ever tell you were supposed to overcome anything? The whole, what is enlightenment? Enlightenment is having all of your thoughts, all of your feelings, all of your impulses, all of your instincts, all of your drives, all of your desires. Have them, experience them without any judgment, without any moral judgment. Just have the feeling, whether they're comfortable or uncomfortable, and then take appropriate action that is healing for you and others. The problem with what people do is they act on their impulses. They don't like a feeling, so they stick heroin in their neck so they don't have to feel something. They lash out. They whatever it is that they do. They stuff their feelings down. They go storm the Capitol. I don't care. They're just releasing, thinking that if they take these actions, it'll make their feelings go away, make them feel better. Talk to what's his name, shaman. The whatever it is, the QAnon shaman, and see if acting on his feelings was something that made him feel better. He's regretting that action right now because he didn't think through what the hell he was doing. So to answer your question, sit with your feelings and have them. Yeah, have your feelings and love yourself through them, and then take positive actions. It's everything I've always been saying. So you're just human. You're having a lot of feelings that make you uncomfortable. You're human. What makes you healthy or unhealthy is not the feelings, it's the actions that you take. The actions are what's most important. And if you need to talk to somebody, you need to talk to a therapist or a mentor or something like that to walk yourself through your feelings and have them without acting destructively, then do that. Impetus correspondent. Question. I heard from a previous video that Kali connects to the unconscious, and I tried your practice breathing while moving head right to left. After that I saw Kali, not really angry, but she suddenly turned into a close friend of mine during the meditation. What do you think could be the meaning of this experience? Well, it's your unconscious, so you're going to have to decode it. But I think these kinds of experiences can't be explained in one soundbite. It might take the rest of your life to figure out what that meant, but it certainly seems that Kali wants to work with you. Kali isn't just the unconscious. Kali is the Saturn principle, which is karma. So she's there. If she transformed into your friend, then I don't know what that means about your actual friend. That's something you need to figure out. But it all definitely means that you have a friendly relationship with Saturn when the planet Saturn wants to come and help you resolve your karmic issues. That that Kali is your friend. I would consider worshiping her because she obviously is your friend and wants to help you. The thing about Kali is, Kali, when you see her and she's, her tongue is sticking out and there's blood coming out, she's crazed, she's got, a head of, she's got a necklace of human skulls and she's got human severed arms for a skirt. She's very frightening. So when she comes to you and she's frightening to you, it means that you're attached to something that's not serving you. There's some attachment to some self-directed negativity that you think is helping you and it's not. And it's quote karmic, and she's coming to destroy that. But because you're attached to it, you think she's coming after you. She's not. She's coming to, if you're being attacked by something, imagine some animal is latched to your arm and is eating your flesh, and she's coming to save her child from that, so that's where that intensity is coming from. So if you see her that way, it means you're attached. It would mean that you'd think that this thing attached to your arm that's chewing your flesh, you'd think it's something you need, and she's trying to get rid of it. But if you see her in a friendly way, it means that you're not attached and she's coming as a liberator to come and heal you. So depending on your attachment to your negative issues will determine how you experience Kali. Some people astrologically do not have a good connection to Saturn, which means that they're going to experience karma in a certain way, and they're going to experience Kali in a certain way. So you don't worship her if she's going to be a frightening experience for you. I mean, you can if you want, but if you want to have a pleasant experience, then you're going to go to the deity that wants to help you. If Kali is coming to you as a friend, it means that astrologically you have a relationship with the planet Saturn in such a way that working through your unconscious karmic issues is, isn't as frightening for you. So instead you worship Kali instead of Jupiter, for example. So just because, Jupiter is supposed to be the god, the planet of spirituality and healing, for me, even though I have a great relationship with Jupiter and I love Jupiter, Jupiter is in my 8th house, which means that if I worship Jupiter, it's going to bring trauma and wisdom, but it's also going to bring trauma. So I work with the deities that work best with me, which for me is Mars, but that's not going to be the same for everybody. So you obviously have a great relationship with sorry, I got distracted here. A great relationship with Kali, so keep it up. Okay, Cody Hill, you and I have had our problems. An honest feeling is an honest feeling. It means you feel sad, you feel angry. You say, I believe that it may be beneficial for you. That is not an honest feeling. That's unsolicited advice. That's like saying, I think the guy next door is stupid. That's not an honest feeling. I feel that you're wrong about politics. That's not an honest feeling. You didn't give me any feeling and I haven't asked for your advice. I don't know what NFTs are. So I appreciate you trying to help me, but that's not what I want. Honest feeling is I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm frightened. Honest question is, can you give me the answer to this? All right, so try again. Indrajit Maman question, could you explain how talismans work? Wearing Mjolnir or other pendants. That's a huge subject. How I want to answer that is to talk about yantra. So yantra, like this is a yantra. This actually is an East Indian yantra as well as a Norse talismanic symbol. But a yantra is a symbol that is actually a deity. So I'm not sure which deity this actually is, but this is a deity. And every yantra is a deity. And before people had what do you call those? Statues, right? Idols. There was no such thing as idols. Before that, there were these diagrams. So the diagrams act as like, I don't even know what word to call it, like some kind of a 3D projector. And so they would make the symbol and then they would worship the deity associated with that symbol. So this is why in Vedic tradition, you will have symbols that are associated with deities. There will be a specific mantra for a specific yantra. And when you chant that mantra, that yantra will become activated and it will then act like a 3D projector. And the deity will have its projection. And this is why they use copper, because it's metal, right? See how that makes sense? It's etched in. There's a yantra etched into it, and when you chant the mantra, the metal in it vibrates and it creates this 3D projection of the deity. So ideally, you use the yantra to manifest the deity, and when the deity is fully manifested, then it must give you your desire. When it fully manifests, then it says, what do you want? and you say, I want to be king of the world, and you become king of the world. So, and talismans, I think, work on a similar, maybe in a similar way. There's a way that, you're wearing it, or are you empowering it? Are you putting it in the moon? Are you doing rituals to it? Because you're kind of saying that you want that deity, in this case, you would want Thor to be manifest inside of the talisman. But then we get into the question of, you can also see in somebody's chart, if you're a good enough astrologer, you can see if a certain deity wants to be chanted to, wants to be meditated on, wants to have ritual. So you're going to have a better response based on how the deities want to be experienced just by looking at your chart. Again, you need somebody who knows what they're doing. That's a little bit beyond my ability. Hope that answers your question. Agent of the universe, honest feeling. All I did was walk, and I was bawling my eyes out a little bit, and I felt like my eyes were naked, and I wanted to put my sunglasses on, but I didn't have them on me. My ego was angry. He wanted to be understood, so I hugged him and understood him. That's awesome. That's an awesome way of interacting with yourself. That is an awesome way of interacting with yourself. Okay, Cody Hill has apologized. All right, I accept your apology. Impetus correspondent, thank you so much, Mahadeva. That really helped. Okay, Vincent.ThunderWizard.com comes in case you want to, since we're talking about Vedic astrology, if you want to get your chart done, you can go to his website, Vincent.ThunderWizard.com. He has been certified by me, and he has even gone beyond what I've taught. So he knows things that I haven't even learned yet. By the way, anybody who gets a Vedic, if you take my Vedic astrology course and you get certified and you pass the test, which is very simple, I will also put your website up on, put a link for, I give you your own website on my website. So Vincent.ThunderWizard.com is his own little website on my ThunderWizard.com website. So just that is far worth the price that you pay to learn, in case you want it. If you want to learn all of them, I don't have time to put all the links up. Go to courses.thunderwizard.com. You see the link right there. It's there for a reason. You can find all of my books and everything there. I don't see any more questions. Are we done with the questions? So yeah, it's time to, transformation is here whether we like it or not. Whether we like it or not, transformation is here. And I am presenting to you, in my experience, what I believe to be one of the best ways to make yourself able to flow with that transformation. So, here's the deal. People that aren't going to flow with the transformation are going to end up on the wrong side of wherever they're at. I mockingly talked about QAnon shaman. That guy is obviously on the wrong end of his reaction to his transformation. He made a really stupid mistake. We could argue whether or not he was in the right to do it, but the way he did it he was stupid. And anybody with half a brain would have known that that's going to get you put in jail. Anybody with half a brain would have known that. So that's one example. You're well-meaning, you think you're on the path, you think you're doing the right thing, and you're going to be acting out of your ignorance, acting out of your limitation, acting out of all the things you don't understand. And again, I haven't. I'm being honest with you. I have not made a decision about the vaccine. If you want to know where my thoughts are right now, if I were in the States, which I'm not, I would definitely have been vaccinated by now. I know a friend of mine who got COVID, and he, of course, survived, but he had long COVID, if you know anything about that. He had a lot of challenges to his health, As a result of that, he went and got vaccinated, got rid of those challenges. There are people in hospitals now, anti-vaxxers, both famous and not so famous. And if you just put a little time and effort at, sorry, for those of you who are so frightened they can't figure out where to get information, there's plenty of news stories about people on their deathbed saying, I wish I'd gotten vaccinated. So these are people acting out of their, taking actions that aren't helpful to them, based out of their fear, their insecurity, or their narcissism, because they're not operating well. COVID is an agent of transformation, and it's going to bring out the worst. This is why, we've got all this pseudoscience and bad science, and we've got, there's information on both sides that's not getting through. So everybody's right. Everybody on both sides of the argument are right. This is where critical thinking comes into play. When is something partially true and partially false? This is true about both sides of this argument. I personally am trying to wait until the Novavax vaccine comes through. That one looks the most effective and the least dangerous. But I have the time to do that, although that's starting to fall apart now because COVID is finally making its way. It's finally found its way into Australia, and it's going to make its way into the population here eventually too. So I may have to make a decision quicker than I wanted to. The point being is that transformation is here. Global warming and climate change is not a theory. It is a fact. The only thing now is people can debate on where it came from. Was it human caused or not? That is really a ridiculous question, but it doesn't matter. It's here. Now what do we do? How do we deal with the fact that there will be more floods, there will be more storms, there will be more droughts, there will be destruction of living situations. The seas are going to rise. There's going to be less food. There's going to be less clean water. It's affected our air, our ability to do what we do. COVID is another good example. But this is coming. Things are going to change, and the question is, which side of that transformation do you want to be on? If you're willing to die to yourself, you can be protected. My experience throughout my life has been I've been protected from all of the craziness that is going. 9/11 was another manifestation of change. And I happened to be meditating up in the mountains of this was a long time ago, but I was meditating and I didn't have to deal with all that because it would have been really traumatic for me to have watched and experienced that. So I came down in the mountains after all that had happened. I've been here in Australia throughout the whole COVID crisis, and I haven't had to deal with any of that. I've been in this bubble. The worst, my worst problems now is I might have to wear a mask if I want to go into town. That's about it. But other than that, I don't have to deal with it. There's really, that's because the universe takes care of me. It keeps me safe and takes care of me because I'm doing everything in my power to transform. And I'm willing to die to myself, and I'm willing to be wrong, and I'm willing to be uncomfortable. And I'm still personal things I'm going through, a lot of transformations personally and emotionally and still physically. I'm having to die to myself on a daily basis. I'm no different than any of you. Looks like there might have been some questions come up since I was about to get off the channel. Indrajit Maman question. I apologize. That's not a question. Why do courts use the hammer? No, you're conflating two different things here. You're saying that people use the little gavel in court, that somehow came from the worship of Thor. Again, my question is, where are you getting this stuff? It sounds like you're conflating things. You're just reading things online. That's not coming from Thor. And even so, even if it did, what does that mean? Why does that mean Thor is stronger? You're making all of these conclusions that aren't justified by anything. But no, that's not, that gavel has nothing to do with Thor. I think you're looking for connections, and that's part of the process. But again, we got to put some research behind it. So anyway, Agent of the Universe question: I've been doing the Waking the Immortals each day, and I feel the energies. Yeah, I know. I guarantee. Anybody on here, you don't want to pay a few dollars a month to subscribe, which I can't understand. How anybody could not afford that, I don't understand. Are you homeless? Seriously. How could you not be able to afford that? I mean, there's nobody that says, I don't have the money. I don't believe you. Unless you're homeless or you live with your parents and you literally have no money, there's nobody that can't find, enough for that subscription. But you don't want to do that? Great. Don't do it. I dare you to do this every day for a year. It's one of the most advanced practices I have. It's the summoning the immortals qigong. It's free for everybody. Don't give me any garbage about that I charge money, etc., etc. I dare you to do it. I dare you. Do it every day for a year, and then I dare you to come back and tell me that your life didn't change. In fact, I dare you to do it for a month. Do it every day for a month, and then tell me that nothing happened. I dare you. You won't be able to do it. This is my experience with this stuff is, look, people want instant power. I don't know a faster way. I would tell you. I don't even know an equal way. I don't know of any other path other than this Maoshan path here that gives you so much power so fast. I haven't found it. Guaranteed you will have an experience if you do it. Even if it's just tingling in your hands, you will have some experience. And so, anyway, no excuses. But I do it because it feels good, but it's also, the most transformative experience of my life. What else? Alan Hanna says, please say Sum-E words for our wildfires. I don't know what you're asking. If you're right, is English your first language? I'm not trying to be an asshole. It's just, I don't know what the hell you're saying. So write a whole sentence that makes sense. I'll be happy to interact with you. Agent of the Universe question. Final, can you use thoughts to influence the energies? Thoughts, this is what's wrong with the secret, the law of attraction. Thoughts are so far, it's not that thoughts don't affect things, but your thoughts and your feelings, they do have an effect, but the effect is minimal. And thoughts and feelings are a result of something else. If you have a thought that comes into your mind, it's because there's something going on in your unconscious that creates the thought. If you have a feeling, your feeling is a reaction to something in your unconscious, maybe a reaction to a thought. If you think about the world blowing up and then you have an emotion about it, your emotion is the emotional reaction to that thought. So this whole idea that I can control the world with my thoughts is nonsense. Your thoughts are your intellect. Your intellect is the way that you keep yourself safe in three-dimensional reality. I drive on the left side of the road. I wear a coat when it's cold. I run away from angry bears. These are thoughts. Your intellect tells you how to do that. So this idea that your thoughts, you're going to think reality into, it doesn't work like that. Reality isn't a dump that you're pushing out of your butt, as you said, on the toilet. I'm going to think my way into... It's not something you crap out of yourself. So agent of the universe, knowing you, I wouldn't waste your time doing that. What changes your energies, what changes your universe is your actions. Your thoughts and your feelings, as you've seen, agent of the universe, when you get out of your way and you stop trying to control. Remember when you were God Emperor, you were trying to control everything. Now that you're not trying to control everything and you're doing this work, all of these feelings are coming up. And the feelings are just that. They're feelings. They're just reactions to things. They don't have any power in and of themselves. But you show love for yourself by allowing yourself to have your thoughts and feelings. Again, enlightenment is nothing more than having all of your thoughts, all of your feelings, all of your impulses, positive and negative, pleasant or unpleasant, without judgment, and then having the awareness to take constructive action, action that is beneficial for both you and everybody else. Sometimes that means you take actions that are completely contrary to all of the thoughts and feelings and impulses that you have. And that takes discipline, and that's part of dying. You die to yourself every time you take contrary action. So no, your thoughts really aren't that big of a deal. I wouldn't waste my time with my thoughts. I'm far more interested in having my feelings and then taking the conscious actions to make myself better, regardless of my thoughts and feelings. What else? Vincent says, thank you, you're welcome. Indrajit Maman, honest feeling. COVID is a hoax, sir. Indrajit Maman, that's not a feeling. I am offended that you wasted my time. I've been sitting here answering all of your questions and you don't even listen to what I say. And I'm gonna delete that. If you ever put that crap on my channel ever again, I will block you forever. Do not come onto my channel and dump that shit ever again. That is not a feeling. If you said, the whole COVID thing makes me frightened, I'm worried it's a hoax, I'd be okay with that. But don't you dare come on here, dump your crap under, and take advantage of what I'm giving you. I want you to give me your honest questions and your honest feelings, because I want to help you interact with the universe and get what you want. But don't ever fucking come onto my channel and dump that shit under the guise and take advantage of what I've given to you, which is share your honest feelings. Don't ever fucking do that again. Are we clear? You put something like that on my channel again, I will block you. We clear? Last warning. So, all right, what else? Baba Junzo, question. Did the ancient Germanics do energy practices similar to the lightning qigong? I don't know. That's the thing. We don't know what the Druids did. We don't know what the what the specific energy practices were. I do know that what we consider to be yoga, like yogic meditation, is not something that was only done in India, because we have, which we think is probably Celtic, but we have some ancient brass, I don't know, something on a brass holder or something like that. We have some ancient pictures of pre-Christian European shamans who are sitting in full lotus, meditating. So we know that they did that. So who knows what else that they did? They probably did a lot of things. But truth is, we don't know. I'd like to think that they did, but who knows? J. Cloudy developed, honest feeling. I feel that I am allergic to doing anything for a prolonged period of time. I have been Mr. Inconsistent for my entire 27 years. Okay, that's an honest feeling. Allergic, Do you break out in hives? This is just, there's nothing, you're not unusual. So if you think, saying somebody has an allergy, like having a peanut allergy, means that they can't eat peanuts and that's unique. Other people can, but they can't. So you're trying to make us feel that you're some kind of a victim because you yourself are allergic, whereas other people, they can do it. It may be difficult, but I can't do it. I'm actually allergic. I'm different. Well, you're just, that's your ego. You have a lack of discipline, and that's okay. I mean, none of the things I do are easy. I still, I have to force myself to do all the stuff that I need to do. I mean, I have to, I have to force myself to get out of bed to go surfing in the morning. I have to force myself to go to the gym. I have to force myself to meditate and practice. I have to force myself to do it. So this idea that you're allergic, well, okay, so are you going to continue to use that as an excuse? I'll give you another way out. Everything that I do, this stuff, everything that I do gets me high. That's why I do it. It happens to be everything else, everything everybody, in terms of a spiritual practice and all that other stuff is true. But, I know myself. I'm not going to do something that I don't want to do. I'm not going to do something that I don't get a selfish payoff for doing. So I'm going to pick the ones that are going to make me feel good. Like I watch these guys that do the CrossFit, and they look like they're in really good shape. It looks like a really superior way to exercise. But I know myself well enough, I'd get bored with it. I like weightlifting for strength and muscle size. I get a benefit from it. There's an ego benefit. So I know I'm going to get more from that because I'm going to do it. CrossFit's going to bore me after a while because there won't be any ego benefit to it for me. So you pick a practice that works for you. If emptiness meditation does it for you, great. Kundalini yoga does it for you, great. Tai Chi, great. Swimming, I don't care what it is. Whatever works for you. This is what works for me. And I do it because, I am just as lazy as you. So I'm just as allergic to doing things as you are. So in order to overcome that, I do things that I can get easily addicted to, that when I'm challenged and my lack of discipline pops up and tells me not to do something, I'm going to go, yeah, but, and there's going to be an addiction. There's going to be like a chemical bond to doing it. And even when I don't want to do it, I'll get myself up out of bed and I'll stop watching Netflix and I'll go practice. So I appreciate your honest feeling, but there are ways around it. And do things for selfish reasons, not for unselfish reasons. All right, Innerjeet Mama, I warned you. Do you remember that? I warned you. I told you if you did it again, I was going to block you. So speaking of being able to have self-discipline, by the way, this is a life lesson, everybody. What I'm going to do to Innerjeet Maman right now is he is going, because he is incapable, or she, I don't know if it's a he or she, because this individual is incapable of disciplining themselves. This person is so selfish and so narcissistic that they're incapable of respecting somebody else's forum. This is my forum. You've come into my home. I didn't knock on to your, knock on your door and come in and start setting up shop and start telling you what I think. You came into my home. And Innerjeet Maman is, again, abusing the privilege that I've given him. I've given him the privilege that he can give me any honest feeling and he can ask any honest question. This is not an honest question. This is him wanting to dump his thing onto me and taking advantage of, what I've given him in order to learn from me. So because he isn't listening, and because he is incapable, I'm going to block him. So here it comes. By the way, Innerjeet Maman, I am aware of all of those things, and that means nothing. When is something true and when is something false? When is something partially true and partially false? When is something sometimes true and sometimes false? I tell people never to get the flu vaccine. So you have to know the difference. But again, you've abused this forum, how it works, and I'm giving everybody a lesson here. Whoops. I have to go to him now. So I'm going to block him from ever being able to do this again. Where does he go? Hide user on this channel. So I'll say goodbye. The reason I do that, there are people there are times when I have stopped. Very few have I stopped, outright stopped working with people. Sometimes people stop working with me and they want to come back, and I say, no, you don't get to come back. But very rarely I will stop working with somebody. And you have to understand, at some point the universe will stop. At some point, if you keep breaking that protocol, the universe keeps giving you opportunities, at some point it stops and it says no more. And this is, I've got a friend that I know who's in a halfway house. He was the most brilliant guitarist, in the world. I think had this guy done different things, he would have been recognized as the most brilliant guitarist the world has ever seen. And he kept on, there were things that he needed to do to keep himself safe and sane and happy. And he ended up, the last time he was on his own, he ended up underneath a bridge in Boise, Idaho in the winter, drinking mouthwash. And now he's bonkers. Can't remember anything for more than 10 seconds. He had opportunities. He kept on getting opportunities, and he kept on doing his thing, and that's where he is now. People end up dead. People end up with diseases. People end up in jail. At some point, karma comes down and says, that's it. No more chances. So, Innerjeet Maman here, he knew the rules. He knew, number one, my views on certain things, and he knew the rules. And after I warned him, you watched it, I said, I'm warning you. If you do this again, I'm going to block you. What did he do? He turned around, he did the same thing, tried to justify it and say I was just asking a question when he wasn't. So now he's blocked. He doesn't get to interact with me anymore. So that's a lesson, guys. You must be willing. When the universe keeps giving you the same thing over and over again, you have to be willing to listen. I'm trying to teach you ways of interacting with the universe. Trying to teach you ways of interacting with the universe so that you can get the universe to give you the power to expand, to evolve, to grow. If you want to be, like I did, if you want to be, super shaman sorcerer guy, you've got to be willing to listen to what's being told to you. You've got to be willing to learn to adjust your method of interacting so that you can, at the very least, get what you want. So it's more than just me having, a control freak issue. I'm doing it consciously because now Innerjeet Maman has a choice. I gave him a choice, but because he didn't value it, he didn't take action on it, which could have changed everything. If he had listened and acted based on what I was telling him, not based on his impulse to do whatever it is he was needing to do, it could have changed everything and given me a greater opportunity to be more helpful to him and for him to grow. But he wasn't willing to listen. So take that, not just about me. You're one of those people, you can't ever make enough money, you can't get over your illness. Let me give you another example for me. So I've talked about TMS before, tension myositis syndrome, which is, now I'm coming to the conclusion that the majority, if not the entirety, of diseases, especially age-related diseases and illnesses, are all based on a lifetime of internal conflict. When you're in conflict with yourself, at some point that conflict then finds its way into your tissues and it'll express itself in some way. The most common way is chronic pain. So people that just have tendonitis or arthritis or these kinds of things, we put these names to this chronic pain when there's literally nothing wrong with the body in some cases. And this is the case with like back pain, with joint pain. There's literally nothing wrong with the body, but the nerves are inflamed and they're flipping out, but there's no cause for it. There's no physical cause. They didn't get into an accident. It's just happening. This is unresolved internal emotional conflict that's on an unconscious level, that's gone on for years and years, and it finally shows up in the body. So I've experienced this throughout my life. I still experience it. And when I experience it, I know that I'm in conflict. So I was having some pain recently. I was aware that I had become aware of some old, through therapy and other things, I'd become aware of some really old stuff with my parents. How my parents didn't do their job as parents. And I had conflict within myself, unresolved emotional conflict. And so knowing that, and knowing that the pain I was feeling was associated with one particular incident that happened, I tried to work through it by focusing on the anger. And so I really got into how angry I was and how hurt I was feeling. And the pain wasn't going away. So I went deeper. I went deeper than that, and I got to confusion. I realized that when my parents did this one certain thing, it was incredibly confusing to me. And the confusion was actually more traumatic for me than the anger or the hurt. So when I focused on the confusion, pain went away. And I listened. I went, I have to go deeper. So I'm listening. The universe is telling you where to go and what to do if you listen. But if I chose not to listen, I would probably still be in pain. Indrajit Maman is a good example. He used that passive-aggressive thing of pretending to use an honest feeling when he wasn't giving an honest feeling. Then he simply changed the word, trying to manipulate me, saying question. He took what he was saying, which he wanted to dump his opinion on us, and he put it in the passive-aggressive form of a question. So that's why I dumped him. At some point, the universe is going to say no. Baba Junzo, question. I sometimes get urges to do postures that you haven't even taught me after doing the lightning qigong. Are these forms that may have been practiced before or completely new forms? It could be yes to both. Either way, it doesn't matter. You're being taught. This is the whole point of this stuff, to be taught directly by the universe. When you're taught directly by the universe, you get to be your own guru. My job is there are certain things, certain rules that you need to follow, and I'm going to teach you those rules. But in terms of, if you come up with a whole new posture, mudra, movement, where do you think this came from? This was channeled. These were channeled forms. Came directly from the universe itself. So it sounds like a great idea. Let's see. Mario Chavez question. Do you believe untreated traumas can manifest into illness? Yes, I've already said that. Cancer is nothing more than self-directed negativity, either karmic or in this lifetime. That's why some people are born with it. They're little kids. How does somebody get cancer as a little kid? It's called past life trauma. So it's a past life trauma that they brought with them into this life. So this is why, again, it's important to resolve your traumas in this lifetime, because next time you're going to bring those traumas with you. You have to resolve them as well as any new traumas that you experience in three-dimensional reality. I shared a while back, there was a video I watched of a woman who claims to have died and had a near-death experience and came back. She was dying of ultra fatal cancer. Like her body was riddled with giant tumors, and she was dying from it. So she died. I think she was in a coma, and then she died, and etc. And she went off and went to the other realm, and all the beautiful things. Saw the just was in bliss and all of that. And she said, I had this awareness that I was loved, completely, totally loved, simply because I existed. That there was nothing I had to do to earn this feeling of bliss and love that I was having. So she's in that experience, and she's realizing that that's new to her, that while she was in the body, that she was living to prove her love. Her worth was based on what she did, not on who she was. And so she was enjoying that freedom and that awareness. And then she was given the message, it's time to go back. She says, oh, I don't want to go back. She says, you got to go back. And she knew that when she went back, she was going to be healed from her cancer, even though it was incurable and it was like, her body was riddled with it. Because what she was told, which is what I tell you guys, I think it was her father said to live fearlessly, which means to just, that's why people ask me, what should I do about my soul desire? Well, you go after it. You do everything in your power to bring yourself the joy that your soul wants. I don't know what my soul desire is. I know that means you're in conflict. That means part of you wants to be loved based on what you do. And you've learned that in order to be loved, you have to do this, 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 and this. And your soul is in conflict with that. And your soul says, I don't want to do that. I want to surf. I want to live in tropical paradise, and I want to surf every day. I don't want to work at Walmart. And so the conflict, well, if I work at Walmart, then I'll be a good person and people will like me. And, I have to, it's as simple as that. It's traumatic, but it's very simple. It's simple, but it's not easy. So she realized that when she came back in her body, this awareness of being loved simply because I exist, she no longer needed to live her life trying to please other people to get love and approval. And she knew she would be healed. And sure enough, she was healed within days. I mean, that within hours, the tumors shrank and then were gone. So, I've been saying that this whole time. This is what I'm saying. That your unresolved conflict, it will manifest in all kinds of ways. It manifests as poverty. It manifests as mental illness. It manifests as relationship issues. It manifests in your body as health issues. Chronic pain is the easiest one, but when it gets really, really deep, then that chronic pain will, there's somebody in my life who's suffering from ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. It's a horrible disease. It means that the brain literally is disconnecting itself from the nerves. And so what ends up happening is that you end up being stuck in your head and you can't do anything. You can't eat, you can't move, and at some point you die because you stop being able to breathe. And so you're just this vegetable, but you have complete control over your thoughts and your feelings. It's horrible. But this individual for decades had fibromyalgia. What is fibromyalgia? It is an issue with the nerves. And it's based on emotional stress, unresolved conflict, self-directed negativity. And so it's in the nerves. And after decades of that, it turns into ALS. Cancer is the same way. It's all the same thing. It's all, doesn't mean that there aren't other things involved. But absolutely, I am absolutely convinced that all disease is a result of internal conflict with your soul. If you live for your soul, if you live for your soul, you're going to end up with the same conclusion that that woman figured out. You're going to learn through experience, but you'll come to the same conclusion. I'm loved simply because I exist, because I have feelings. And my desire to surf, when I go out there and I surf every day, and it's getting harder and harder. I mean, I'm getting 58 and I don't have the stamina that I used to have. So I got to work at it more. But, that's the thing that's good. That's the most powerful medicine I have. And I have conflict. I still have conflict about being worthy enough to have this life that I have. So you have to take action based on what gives you joy, and eventually you'll come to the conclusion, and it might be very difficult. You might have to die to the idea of everybody loving you. You'll have to die to that to have what your soul wants, perhaps. What else? Arlene Vega question. I'm new to your site, just scanned your website and was wondering if you continue to use the pulsed elect. Yep, I still use it every night. I forget what it's called. I got a link to it. Yep, I use the pulsed electromagnetic therapy thing. I forget the name, the PEMF. I forget the name of the brand that I use. I just started playing around with another thing, which is the hydrogen water. So I got a little hydrogen water thing, and I spend a half an hour breathing in the hydrogen. We'll see what that does. I'm all about that cool stuff, if it works. Camille, if you have a question, write the word question. You see above, Baba Junzo and Mario Chavez wrote the word question in all caps. You see that? So you write the word question in all caps. And question, what does it mean when certain runes manifest themselves temporary in a person's irises on live broadcast? I have no idea. Are you saying that you're looking in my eyes and certain runes are coming up? No clue. I myself wouldn't take that very seriously because, your brain does this thing where it scans for certain things and it will create images. So you may not be seeing runes. You may be seeing, your mind is picking out the pixels on something and creating runes that aren't there. It could be that you are getting a specific message from the deities and you're seeing this rune. Maybe something really is. Anything could be the case, but my feeling is I wouldn't take that too seriously. People do that all the time about, what are those guys? The reptilians. Look at his eyes. His eyes are reptilian. No, it's just the pixels on the video. Come on. What else? Lord Baron Augustus Belenus Divi Philos Belarus. There's a name for you. Question. Put question in all caps, please. Would you consider examining Greek mythology in a video? I would, except that I don't have enough knowledge of it. It's Indo-European religion. I've talked about it. I've written about it in my books. You can go to courses.thunderwizard.com and find, or you can just go to Amazon and type in Michael William Denny. I have books, and in those books I've written about the connection between the Vedic and the Greek and the Latin and the Indo-European and the gods, and how they're the same and they're different, and how, for instance, the word Indra is actually the same word as Thor. It's a different pronunciation. You can't hear it, but if you look at the language, you'll find out that it's actually the same word. So it's the same deity. That Zeus, Jupiter, Deus Pita are all different pronunciations of the same, and Tyr are all the same pronunciation of the root word D, which means the Sky Father. So this is why people come onto the channel, they don't click on the links. I've got books. You want to read my books? I talk about it. I've also got videos. That means put the time and effort to look on my channel, learn how to search with search words within my channel, and look on the playlists, and you can find hours and hours and hours of me doing exactly that. Fleur, question. What are your thoughts on negative near-death experiences? You mean people that die and think they went to hell? So here's what happens. There's a thing called the underworld. The underworld is nothing more than the unconscious mind. So you have a conscious mind, you have a superconscious mind, and you have an unconscious mind. Or you have the conscious, the subconscious, and the subconscious and the unconscious are part of the same thing. But you have your higher self, your middle self, and your lower self. So while you're in the body, your lower self is your unconscious, the underworld. This is when shamans talk about going to the lower world. They're going to their own unconscious. So my thoughts about negative near-death experiences are the same as people who have negative trips on acid. Some people take acid and they see God. Other people take acid and they see the devil. This is why I tell people not to do entheogens, not to eat shrooms or do peyote or do ayahuasca. Don't do any of that shit. Because the only thing you're doing is you're forcing yourself to have an experience of your unconscious. People people in those traditions, in those cultures, if you've lived your whole life in a traditional, South American, Native American culture, you're already, your interactions with life and with your culture and your family have given you the ability to handle those chemicals in a way where you can then have a positive spiritual experience. But for Westerners who come out, and spend whatever it is, $1,000 for a weekend to drink whatever it is, I mean, it's a coin toss, because you've got your own Western traumas and psychology which you're bringing. And so to the level of if you're trying to escape your feelings and you got a bunch of unresolved shit in your unconscious, you're going to have a bad trip. It doesn't mean that that's the nature of the universe. You saw the nature of the universe as this 10-headed demon that was eating people's thigh bones and whatever other horrors. That doesn't mean that's reality. That means that's your unconscious. You now have seen what's in your unconscious. But you now think you had some spiritual experience. Well, you saw your own unconscious. So when people die, let me give you an example of a positive experience. Now, I've proven, if you read my books, I didn't prove it, but I repeat the proof that is out there. Jesus never existed. There was no such thing as a man named Jesus of Nazareth. He never existed. He never preached. He was never crucified. None of that ever happened. But there are people who, including myself, earlier in my life, who have spiritual experiences where they see and talk to Jesus. And I'm not going to tell them they didn't have a real experience. I once was teaching a guy years ago. I was teaching him this stuff. And he had taken mushrooms, and he was in Wales. He was in the mountains of Wales, in nature there. And he had taken some shrooms. And he started talking with Merlin the magician. Merlin the wizard. And as he's talking with Merlin and he's asking Merlin all these questions, at some point he says something about, Merlin's existence. And Merlin says, "Oh, I'm not real. I am the manifestation of other people's intention. So many people in the world believe in me that it has manifested a projection. And that's what you're talking to right now. I don't really exist." So it was a consciousness, it was an entity with consciousness that could interact with him and teach him things, but it wasn't really there. And he says, if people stopped thinking about me, I'd disappear. I'm not really here. So Jesus is one of those beings. There's a projection out there. And the projection of Jesus, interestingly enough, is he's got Northwestern European features, which, if you know anything about the time 2,000 years ago, the Jews in Israel 2,000 years ago did not have blonde hair and blue eyes. They looked like modern day Palestinians. They look just like that because Palestinians are also, the children of Israel, the other tribes. If you want to know who Palestinians are, they're the other Israeli tribes that are no longer Jewish. They got separated and they're not good anymore. They're not part of the Jewish good stuff, so they're looked down upon by the rest of the Jews. But they're the same people. That's what Jesus looked like, if he had existed. So this woman has this experience. She has a near-death experience, and she sees Jesus, and Jesus tells her all the same thing every other being tells people in near-death experiences. And she comes back and she starts talking about Jesus, and she talks about his blue eyes and his blonde hair and how he looked and what he was wearing. And of course, it's just straight out of the pictures that I saw as a kid as I was flipping through in Sunday school. The pictures of Jesus. He looked like some Germanic, right? Some Germanic hippie. So she has this experience, and then when she was back in her body and she was talking about something, and she said, I could feel the presence of Jesus, and I looked to my side and I could see his robe. And, she had projected, her awareness of this deity and the universe or whatever, or her guides or her own soul used that to communicate truth to her. Doesn't mean that Jesus existed. And it sure as hell doesn't mean that he would have been blonde hair and blue eyed. So people who have negative past life experiences where they're taken to hell, that's just the manifestation of their own internal self-directed negativity. Christians especially, anybody, if you know anything about the Christian religion, if you were in the Christian religion, it is the most destructive, self-hatred religion in existence. The whole thing is based on your worthiness of destruction simply for being born. All you did was you were born, and that in itself makes you worthy of destruction. And then every little imperfect thing that you do, according to that tradition, that means that you have to be destroyed. Jehovah has to destroy you because you're imperfect. In fact, he has to slaughter his own perfect son and then take that blood and smear it on you so that when he looks at you, all he sees is the blood of his righteous son who he just ritualistically tortured and murdered because of your imperfection. There's nothing about that religion. So when say, Jesus loves you, well, why would I need that kind of love? I was having dinner with a friend of mine who used to be a Christian like me, and we were talking about how fucked up Christianity was. And he says, my girlfriend, he was with his girlfriend, my girlfriend probably doesn't understand what we're talking about because she didn't live it. She was just one of these people that just sort of went to church and, went to Easter and just loves hearing the sermons about Jesus, but she doesn't really hasn't really lived it. And she would say, yeah, I think it's just people who are looking for grace in their life. You guys are making too much out of it. I said, why do I need grace? Grace from what? What did I do that I need forgiveness for? I was born. There's nothing wrong about being human. Being human doesn't mean I need some kind of forgiveness or some kind of grace. She looked at me like she didn't know what I was talking about, because she's so ingrained with the idea that humans need forgiveness, and that's what love is, being forgiven for being such a fuck up. God so loved the world, God so loved those fucking stupid people that he created, that he ritually murdered his only begotten son. And whosoever believes in him, will have everlasting life. But those that don't, you're going to be in hell forever. There's just nothing positive about that religion. So if somebody's programmed like that, guess what's going to happen when they have a near-death experience? They're going to go to the underworld, which is their own unconscious, and they're going to see the most horrific demons. They're going to be tortured and told that it's no different. The Tibetan Buddhists, when they talk about being enlightened, do you want to know what it is? It's real simple. When you die, according to Tibetan Buddhism, when you die, a bright light appears. And if you fearlessly go into that light, you will immediately, no matter what lifetime you're in, If you fearlessly go into the light, you will be immediately awakened and enlightened, and you will merge with infinity, and you will never have to be born again. But if you have the slightest fear, boom, you are pulled into these lower realms. And then you will eventually be reborn. And so, interestingly enough, what is one of the most popular beliefs I think many of you listening to me believe? That there are these archons, these false beings of light that you should avoid. Do not go into the light, because if you do, you will be deceived. Guess what's going to happen? People who believe that, when they die, they're going to see that light, they're going to be afraid, boom, they're going to be pulled right back down. So dying to yourself, being willing to die, it's that light, which is you, by the way. That light is your soul. You know, people say, I saw the light, I talked to God. It's your soul. It's not God. Unless you want to accept that your soul is God, which I believe. It's just that simple. So that's what I think negative past life experiences are, if they're legitimate, if somebody isn't lying about it. Okay, what else? Question, Kamil says, what if Jesus' physical is still on planet Earth, namely in Srinagar, Kashmir, and if examined it will prove that his body, as there are crucifixion marks. What do you mean, what if? What kind of question is that? Are you asking me? What if I had two heads? Well, do you have two heads? Well, then that's a ridiculous question. I only have one. Look, here are the facts. These are facts. And if you want to look at actual verifiable facts, other than if you want to talk about what ifs, if you want to stay in La La Land, and manifest your own whatever, you can do that all you want. But I mean, there's all kinds of things. But whatever that is, I'm sure it can be easily disproven. Even if you're giving me this question, again, it's this passive aggressive way of telling me, here's the thing. What you really want to say is, Jesus is still on planet Earth, namely in Srinagar, Kashmir. And if examined, it will prove that his body is there, crucifixion marks. So fucking what? That's not an honest question, for one thing. But there's no doubt in my mind that it can be easily disproven. But, look, people have, you've heard of people who have I forget what that's called, where you have the marks where people start bleeding from the forehead and they start bleeding from the palm of the hand, and it's that whole Catholic thing. Well, that's really intense, that they're bleeding from the hand, right? From the middle of the palm. Wow, that means Jesus is real, right? Well, except for the fact that if somebody was crucified with nails, they had to put the nails here. You never told that. So everybody who thinks that Jesus has holes in his hands doesn't know how crucifixions are done. Because crucifixions, if you have to nail somebody, you have to nail them in the wrist. Because it's the wrist bone that holds you up. If you put a nail here, it'll slice through your hand. You can pull your hand out. You'll tear your hand open. No, it's here. So whenever you see somebody who's having whatever stigmata, see, Jesus is real. Look, he's bleeding from his palms. It shows that in their mind, in their unconscious mind, they don't understand. So even if there is some guy out there who's got some marks, so fucking what? It's called, it's psychosomatic. You can manifest in your mind whatever the fuck you want. So sorry, my friend. If you want to look at facts, provable, verifiable facts, he never existed. He was never a human being. There was never some guy who was crucified. And if Kamil, if you're telling me that he's some guy who lives and you want to connect it to Hindu religion, then you're going to have to make a choice between Hindu religion and the Bible. Because the Bible and the Vedas do not agree. So you're in conflict with yourself. It's cute. I'm happy that you found some really fun esoteric fantasy that you can talk about, but it shows you don't understand even the basics of the religion behind these manifestations. Human mind can manifest whatever the hell it wants, including a Jesus that doesn't exist. Mario Chavez, question. If you do me a favor, write the word question in all caps so I can see it. Thoughts on religion, and do me a favor, write whole sentences. You want me to spend the time to answer your question? Put the time and effort into writing a whole sentence. I deserve that, and so do you. Thoughts on religion just being allegories for light and the sun. That's going to take me a long time. Give me a specific question and I'll answer it. Baba Junzo, question. Could the early dualistic traditions that created monotheism decision to separate light and darkness as good and evil be a sign of the disempowering of the divine feminine? Yes. That would be one thing somebody could say about that. Short answer, yes. Mario Chavez is going to tell us what he thinks. Honest questions, honest feelings. It seems we're just energy being recycled on Earth until we figure out how to go back to our original source, the light. I guess I can't say anything negative about that. All right. Nothing else? Okay, I guess we're done. I'm getting cranky, so I guess we're done. All right, that's it, guys. All right, so look, if you want what I have, you got to do what I do. These are all the things that I do. What I recommend is the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. Go and do it as I'm presenting it. The more people that we have in that, we're going to eventually have enough people where we can do live stream meditation intentions. That's my hope. And go and do it one phase at a time. Spend the 90 days on each phase. There's new stuff coming out. There's the water set is going to be coming out here shortly. We're up to fire now. Every time I put a new element up, the price goes up. Yeah, if you want to transform, even just want to do this every day for free. Do this every day, and then let's see what happens. The world is changing, whether we like it or not. All right, that's it for me. I'm all done. I will see you guys when I see you. Take care of yourself. Stay safe, and listen. Listen to what is being told to you. Learn to drop your ego and listen. The most valuable thing I can give you today is that. Oh, Dakota's thrown a question just before I'm going to find more. Okay, let's see here. Dakota says, question, what would be the best of your books to start with for a beginner apprentice? There is no one. It depends on what you want. You want to learn shamanism? Thunder Shamanism is a good book. Why don't I just do that? Thunder Shamanism. I've got books on it. There's videos out there. I think you can still get videos on Thunder Shamanism. I think that's a good place to start. All right. That's it from you guys. I'll see you when I see you. Take care of yourselves.